Anita, how's your mental health?
Questionable at all times. You know this.
Yeah, how's the mental health of your children?
Also a little bit tricky. Can I tell you my experience in trying to find therapists for myself and my kids, Mel?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is how it goes. You ask around your friends and your family for a referral for somebody who's nearby. You finally find somebody who sounds like they might work for your family. You give them a call and you find out that A, they're not accepting new patients, or B, they have a huge wait list. So you start over again and you ask people if they know anybody who would be a good therapist and a good fit. Finally, you find one, you go and you meet with them and you figure out that you don't actually like them that much. But it's been so much work to find somebody who you can go to in your area that you're kind of stuck with them. Well, do you have any ideas for how to get around this?
I do, because guess what? I've actually had some therapists that I have found on my own, which involves what you're saying. Sometimes I remember one time I was like 3 hours in the bathtub on my phone looking through websites. I was such a prune at the end. But I have also had the experience with working with BetterHelp. And it was like, I don't want to say too good to be true, but because it is true, but it's like amazing because I was matched with my therapist within 24 hours.
And you didn't have to go through all of that other ridiculous process of trying to find somebody. And here's the cool thing too, is if that person didn't work out for you, you can just switch and say, and it's not like you're committing to another years long search for somebody who you're going to jive with.
It's true. And I lucked out, or maybe just BetterHelp is really good at matching people together because I never had to change my therapist. I loved her. Perfect fit for me. And I know that some of our friends have used BetterHelp and they've had to change therapists, and boom, same day, you can change.
Easy peasy.
You can ghost your therapist. Get a new one.
I love this idea. BetterHelp is one of our sponsors. If you use our promo code trybetterhelp.com/WWDN, you get 10% off your first month. And we totally recommend it.
Yes. Get some therapy. That's trybetterhelp.com/WWDN.
Hi, Mel.
Hi, Anita.
I am a robot. Are you a robot?
I figured so I decided to also be a robot.
How's it going, Mel?
Oh, just being a widow, helping my mom be a new widow, dealing with the new widow things. And I would like to add something that I have not had experience in was dealing with the person who has died's business. Been a little bit of a nightmare, to say the least. So that's all I'll say. Holy cow. And I would like to say there are some sneaky snakes out there.
Sneaky snakes, dang it.
Sneaky snakes who find out somebody is dead that they used to work with and take advantage of it behind the family's back. That's all I would like to say.
That's so wrong.
But you know what? We're going to work through it. It's going to be okay. And we have people on our side. So thank you for attorneys.
Ugh, but what a pain that you even have to do that.
The anger part distracts you from the grieving part.
Whether or not that's good, I don't know.
I don't know what it is, but the week has gone and we've had some, ups and downs like usual. And my mom's had some of the first raw, hard realizations. And so one day was super, super extra bad. And Anita came to give my mom a hug because she knows what it's like to be a solo parent.
I gave your mom a hug. I told her she could steal some of my life force. I've had a terrible week, Mel.
Yeah, you have.
Yes.
Sorry I've not been able to help you. I've been over here
It's okay.
dealing with fire and brimstone.
It's just like, I feel like it's a confluence of factors. It's the winter in the northern hemisphere, which always I always get kind of the winter blues, the winter blahs around this time of the year. And then COVID is crazy where we are right now. So we had distance learning and school canceled and all of these things. And then I've just had these really weird reminders, and I don't know what's going on with that. But today we were in church, and my 11-year-old, all of the other boys in his little group are wearing ties. And my son is not wearing a tie. And I had this like horrible moment of, I don't even know how to tie a tie. And then it was like, which is so interesting because sometimes you come to those issues, and I'm like, oh, we'll just YouTube that. Like, that is not that big of a deal. Like, we are stronger than a stupid tie. And then sometimes it's like, it's the end of the world. I'm a terrible parent. And that's where I am this week. I'm not like, we'll YouTube it. I'm like, I don't know how to tie a tie, and my child looks like he's homeless, and I'm the worst parent, and we're never gonna make it, and we should just give up. Ugh. So, I don't know, maybe we'll figure it out how to tie a tie, but...
I think a lot of the widowed moms right now are saying all in unison, I know how you feel, Anita.
Yeah. It's just funny how sometimes it's like not a big deal, and sometimes it's like the worst thing that you could ever come up against.
Now, this is not helpful, and it may be rude, but my dad taught me how to tie a tie because he didn't have any sons, and so when I was growing up, he took me to all the son things. Like fathers and son things.
So can you teach him how to tie a tie?
Sure. I remember.
I can do a single Windsor. I can't do a double Windsor.
Okay. Well, anyway, I didn't mean that to be mean, just to be funny.
That's okay.
But
yeah,
good luck.
Ugh.
Come visit me when you need a tie tied. And I'm sorry that I can't do anything about Jason being gone. Dang it.
I know, it's really stupid. And same to you. I'm sorry that Scott's dead, and I'm sorry your dad died too. It is all stupid and sucky. And to everybody who's listening to this who has a dead person, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and if you've just joined for the first time on this episode, you gotta scoot back a couple episodes because a lot's happened. So that's all I'll say. But it's been a year already, and it's only January something. You know what? I had a realization this week because my new tennis partner, who is my friend that I've known for a long, long time, it came to my mind just because I've been seeing more of her since my dad died, since now we play together. And I remember thinking when Scott died, saying to her, I just don't even know what I'm doing. And she's like, you are going to figure it out because look at all of the stupid crap you've already figured out. And I know that nobody really knows how to do this, but if anyone can figure it out, it's you. And I just really remember being like, I have no idea how to do this. Like, normally I'm like, okay, I'll go figure this out, or I'll figure this out. Okay, so that's back in whenever Scott died, 2017. And then the thought came to me the last 2 weeks. I know how to do this. My mom's going through this. I know how to do this. Even though grief and dealing with a dead spouse is so hard and it's different for everybody, I think it's so weird that it's kind of a skill now. And I looked back on that contrast between being a new widow and then being where I am now and trying to help my mom. And I'm like, I know what to do. In a way, at least I'm not kind of just left to the beasts of the world.
I don't think it's necessarily a great thing that on your resume you're like, now I am skilled in the aftermath of death. But you kind of are because you've had a little bit of experience.
Yes.
You're like good with Excel spreadsheets and the aftermath of death.
I can edit audio. I can make music tracks. And I'm really helpful with the aftermath of death.
Yeah.
In some cases. Well, but the thing that I felt was empowerment, and that was surprising to me because these super horrible things, no, we don't like to hear, you're so strong, when we're feeling weak. But the more that I go through this and the more skills I gain, I'm just like, holy crap, that's a lot of stuff that we have all lived through. And it does make me feel empowered and stronger. So is that a plus? I guess so. I'm going to count it as a win.
Yeah.
Even though I have no control over all of the death and destruction around me.
I mean, I think it's great if you can frame it as a win. I think a lot of it is in how we frame it, and we get to make some of the decision in how we frame it. So kudos to you, Mel.
But the thing that's so funny is I felt like that, and then the last 3 weeks, I have to get reminded to shower. And I forgot one week to find toothpaste for to brush my teeth. So on one hand, I'm like, I'm empowered and yes, let's help everyone. And then I'm like, oh, I probably smell. But we're back. We're here for another week. We hope that those of you who are having a rough go at it know that you are joined in solidarity with a bunch of other people and that there are people maybe further ahead of you that understand that you feel like that and that it might not always be that way. There's a whole community.
So yeah, come join us in the Widow Wives Club if you want to interact more with people who have been or are in your shoes right now. It's a really helpful community. It's a very safe space. That's why we make you provide proof that you're a widow, so that we can be confident that the people in there belong in there and that you can be honest with your feelings. And you know, everybody has such different experiences. Even though we've all experienced partner loss, people are in really different places. We have people who did not have great relationships with their spouse. We have people who were engaged. We have people who were married for a long time. We have people who were married for a very short time. We have people with kids, without kids. Our ages are different. And I always find it so interesting that even though our experiences are different, that we can always find common ground in our experience as well and support each other. And that's something that our group does really well, that in other groups, I've seen it not work so well, where people start to compare and it gets kind of not as pleasant. But our group is really great about that. So kudos to the Widow Wives Club also for being such amazing widows and widowers too.
Yes, thank you for joining us, all of you. We are so grateful for you. And we even mentioned you guys in the interview with our next guest, which we are so excited about. But first, we want to let you know about our Patreon. If you love this podcast, and if you are able, and if you are willing, and you would like to help us continue the podcast, please consider joining our Patreon. It is a recurring donation that you can stop at any time, and it starts at $5 a month. You get different things within each of the tiers, and one of the things is a shout out within the episode of the podcast, and that is at the Widow Bestie level and up. That's the tier that helps Anita get a babysitter so that there's no screaming, which... Hey, there's no screaming right now. Yay!
That is only because of luck.
Okay, 30 seconds later, I will have eaten my words. So, if you'd like to join the Patreon, go to patreon.com/WWDN, and we will get to our shout out.
So, for our first shout out, it goes to our secret dead husband, and we say to her, "Widow singing in the dead of night. Take these broken wings and learn to fly. All my life." That's all I've got.
Thank you, Paul McCartney, widower.
Yes.
Once a widower, always a widower. Even if you get remarried 3 other times. Next we have Constance Dahlbeck,
David Kelly,
Don Satterwhite,
Gail Paxton,
Ivan the Misner. Episode is right now.
Then we have Kat,
Krista Waite,
Sam Finlayson,
Amy Hartman Martell,
Amy Sapp,
Ashley Hahn,
Brittany Pedro, hey,
welcome, Chris Steffen,
Christina Shiflett,
Danielle Catterberg,
not a Debbie Downer,
Dennis Brazo,
Heidi Hayward, hey,
welcome, Jenny Taylor,
Jennifer Beal,
Jennifer Brown,
Jennifer Hassel,
Jenny Wang,
Kathy Murray,
Kelly Ford,
Spooky Kirsten Stromberg.
Her wedding is in just a few days. Laura Bradbury,
Maren Old,
Leslie Webb,
Marie Hoffman,
M.K. Anderson, welcome,
Missy Schubert,
Rachel Barbosa, party, Sarah Morris,
Spunky Sylvia Shore.
She was spunky this weekend. Do not cross a widow, y'all. Go Mom. Taylor Snyder,
Karen Cornejo,
Vicky Spitt,
Anna Tracy,
Christina Scambato,
Christine Anderson,
Cindy Raynaud,
Mindy Holmgren. I had the craziest coincidence with Mindy this week.
Don Barber,
I know. Debbie Fells,
Deborah Westwood,
Diana Becker,
Emily Toledo,
Erin Persick,
Gabe Lozano,
Gia Benoit,
Gina Haas,
Ian Sini,
Ileana Bell,
Jackie,
Jane,
Jenny Barrow,
Jocelyn Milo,
Joy D. Kirsch,
Julie Stevenson,
Karina Jacobo,
Katie Radcliffe,
Kara Scara,
Laura Keeley, welcome,
Lindsay Konopka,
Lori Farrington,
Marjorie Lewis,
Mary McGowan,
Megan Montague,
Peter Rukavina,
Becky Zyba,
Sarah Kennedy,
Shannon Helm, happy birthday this week,
Stacy Saywert,
Sunshine Haven,
Okay, Tammy, you're going to have to help me. Is it Tammy Teravest? Tammy Teravest? 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 Tell me. Tammy, just tell me.
Tara Wallace.
The grandmother of all the most glorious Coton de Tuileries in the United States, with a new litter, Valerie Packer.
And finally, we will end with resin grape Wendy. Remember those that our moms used to make?
We had those.
Remember those?
Wendy's and my grandma had those.
Yes, you had to.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you to all of our patrons. It's amazing. We are still always shocked and floored at the amount of support you guys are giving us. And it just helps us to pay it forward and be able to help more widows, because we all know that as widows, we need some help. So thank you so much. If you're interested in joining, go to patreon.com/WWDN.
If you are not wanting to join the Patreon but would like to buy us some tacos, go to buymeacoffee.com/widowwedonoww.
By the way, I used rescue tacos this week with Mel when she was having a terrible day. And it was a taco miracle. Not even joking.
You guys, I told her, I was like, Anita, I cannot have a meeting today. Don't come over, even though I said that we should. I am going to take drugs and have a meltdown. And she came over and I did not take my drugs and I did not have the meltdown. It helped me. I'm shocked.
And the taco shop that we love has been closed for months because a car ran into the front and broke all the glass and they couldn't get glass because of COVID, blah, 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 blah. They opened for one day and we got tacos, and the next day they got shut down again because the glass didn't meet the inspection. Yes, so that taco shop was open for one day, wherein I rescued you with tacos.
They knew that it was meant for me because my dad died and my mom's a widow and I'm a widow.
Yes.
They knew it.
It's amazing. And you guys made that happen.
By getting us tacos. Thank you so much. And if none of that works for you, that's totally cool. Please give us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. You can actually now review on Spotify, by the way. Just I think people protested and they were like, why can you not do that? So you can review on Spotify now. So that would help us. So Spotify or iTunes, Apple Podcasts. But please say nice things and give us 5 stars so that it helps us to be able to reach more people. And if you don't want to do any of that, it's cool. We get it. We love you anyway.
Hey, Mel.
What?
Do we want to tell them that we are going to be having the best Valentine's Day extravaganza for widows of all time and in the century?
You guys, it's true. We've been planning this. It's going to be epic. Join the Widow Wives Club so you know when, where, and what it's going to be. And we are so excited to talk about it in the upcoming days in the Widow Wives Club. Check it out.
All right. Should we get to our episode then?
I believe so.
I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
We're 2 young widows, and we're helping you and helping ourselves try to figure out widow.
We
do
now. Boop. This episode is sponsored by the Misner Family Foundation in memory of Elisabeth Misner.
Sometimes we assume that unless we had a huge life insurance payout, we don't really need to know anything about investments or even finances. But guess what? A little knowledge of finances is critical for all of us. Maybe your partner was in charge of that stuff, and now you find yourself making all the decisions. Maybe you're mad about that. Maybe I am. Nicole from the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast is here to help. She tackles financial literacy by telling the stories of women and widows and finance experts, and shares the lessons they've learned as certified financial planners. Whether you know a lot and feel confident in your financial decisions or feel unsure about all of that stuff, there is more to learn. Listen and subscribe to the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast on all podcast platforms. This ad was paid for by Rockhouse Financial, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
You know, I do a couple of hundred of these interviews a year, at least 200. Yeah. And I got to tell you, I've never been as nervous about doing an interview as I am about
Yes!
this one.
This is the one you should be least nervous about.
But is it because you don't know what we're going to ask?
It's because, we're going to be talking about something that is so personal for me. It's a lot more challenging than the stuff I normally do interviews about.
Okay, that's fair.
Is there anything you don't want us to ask you about?
No, I not. I've heard your interviews, so I've heard them all up to like 94 and 95. I think there's one that I haven't listened to yet. Just listened to the Creepers one, which on behalf of men everywhere, I'd like to apologize.
Thank you.
And thank you for not being a creeper yourself.
Yes.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. I am. You don't usually go into topics that are inappropriate. So, when I do interviews, I don't talk sex in detail anyway, and politics, religion. I stay out of that as a rule, just because BNI does.
I think we should only ask him about sex, politics, and religion now.
So who did you vote for?
I won't answer that one.
You know us. We're scared of our moms, so anything that's like divisive, we're terrified of asking. So
I'm so excited.
is it because we're only going to talk about sex, politics, and religion?
Yes. Today we have decided that those are the only topics we're going to cover, and we're only going to say swear words too.
Only. Yeah. For our moms.
You ladies are bad.
Okay, it's not true. We're not going to do any of that.
We're just kidding. We're scared of all those topics, but we're not scared of talking about death to other people who have experienced death.
So here we are. Today our guest is the one and only Ivan Misner. Hi!
Hello, ladies. It's great to see you.
Thank you for being here. We have talked to you a lot, but never on the podcast. So this is a new thing for us. We're so excited for everybody else to get to hear your story.
Well, thanks. I'm kind of excited to be here. I mean, I do a lot of interviews, but never on this topic. So this is a little bit nerve-wracking.
We're kind of excited that you feel a little nervous. We want people to feel just a little nervous when they talk to us. Ivan, where are you recording from?
This is my home office in Austin, Texas. And it's a great little story about this house. It was my wife's dream house. I told her, get any house you want. We were in Austin for a couple of years, and I said, we're ready. Buy whatever house you want. I don't care. Here's the budget. I just want a couple of things. I want my own office. I don't want to turn a bedroom into an office, and I want a wine cellar. She was gone one day, found it, came back, said, I found my dream house. I came here. It didn't have either of those things. I was like, really? I just wanted two things. And that's when I learned she should have been in sales, because she said, look, you see this land right here next to the house? Build your dream office, honey. Whatever your dream office is. And I said, what about the wine cellar? She said, well, there's a storage room under the house. Build your dream wine cellar. And so I built my dream office and my dream wine cellar.
That's so funny.
So is it separate from the main house?
It is, yeah.
Oh.
She kicked you out that early? She was like, get out of my new house. My new dream house.
Pretty much. I mean, having the separate office actually kind of made it feel like I was going to work.
I was just going to say, she is wise, because if you are doing work from home, it's easy just to never leave. So at least you have to leave the house and maybe take a few steps.
I do. 52 steps.
Now, Ivan, if people have listened to any of our podcasts, they will have heard your wife's name before, because you are one of our amazing sponsors in memory of your wife. So you guys have heard her name before. Her name's Elisabeth. Do you want to tell us a little bit about her?
Yeah, I met Elisabeth in BNI, in the company I started. She was a member of BNI, and we met at a BNI meeting. At the time, I was in a relationship, so I really didn't. I met her and didn't see her again for probably about 2 years. And she reached out to me 2 years later and said, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me." And at this point, I was no longer in that relationship, and I'm sitting there thinking, "Oh yeah, I remember you. You're beautiful." I didn't say that, but that's what was going through my head. And she asked if I would come visit the chapter that she was now running for BNI. And it was like a 2-hour drive to go, but I was actually almost a 3-hour drive, but I was happy to do that. And I took her out for dinner, and the rest is sort of history.
So you didn't play hard to get?
No. But you know what? I was a perfect gentleman on our first date. And And I think she appreciated that.
So tell us what BNI is. We know, but for those who don't know, tell us.
Yeah, BNI is a business and professional networking organization that allows one person per profession to join one of the groups. We have 10,400 groups in more than 70 countries around the world. We get together every week and we pass each other referrals. Well, in the last 12 months, the organization passed over 12 million referrals and generated $18 billion with a B, $18 billion worth of business for our members.
I would just like to tell a short story. So one day I was going to one of my structural integration appointments, and I was waiting for my therapist, who happened to be the owner of the company, and she ended up being in the lobby, and then so did another person that had seen a different therapist, and they were crossing paths, and he was like, oh hey, and they were like, oh, it's good to see you. We had so much fun back in the good old BNI days. And I was like, wait. And I'm like, okay, I'm interjecting because this is just weird. I was like, are you guys talking about like BNI, like Ivan Misner BNI? They're like, yes, he's so amazing. He's such a visionary. And then they went off on like Ivan Misner, like praise. And I was like, yeah, I know him. And they were like, you're so cool. So then I tell Ivan, and you were like, yeah. I am a big fish in a small pond. But I would like to say, first of all, it's super weird synchronicity that all of that happened at my little appointment. And I don't think you're that small of a deal. I think your pond is bigger than you say. That's all I wanted to say. The end.
Well, you're very nice. I am a big fish in a small pond, though. I mean, in the bigger scheme of things, it's I'm known well by a couple 100,000 people, not millions.
Okay.
We're known by like 5 people, and you're one of them.
Well, you know what, though? You have an audience that goes deep. Some people have an audience that's very wide and they're not very connected. Your audience goes deep. I mean, on particularly the private Facebook page for widows and widowers, a day does not go by where there's not multiple postings. And that's really unusual in social media. You have a very engaged audience, and that's amazing.
That's why we like you, Ivan. You tell us nice things.
You tell us more nice things. We're ready.
Well, I tell you the truth.
Thank you. So I want to hear a little bit more about your life with Elisabeth.
Well, Elisabeth was an amazing woman. We had an agreement early on that I would make the living and she would make the living worthwhile. And that was the dedication on one of my books to her. There's just no doubt she brought color into my black and white world. I'm a left brain business guy. And she was very colorful and very personable. I mean, everybody loved Elisabeth. She got along well with virtually everyone. And she was really my Mrs. Adams. I'll give you perspective. John Adams.
I thought you were going to say the Adams family.
I know. I was like, where is this going? The Adams family?
I know. Who's Uncle Fester in this scenario?
No, not the Adams family. I'm talking about the president of the United States.
You know where our brains are now. Okay, John Adams, go.
Well, his wife, you guys crack me up. His wife, Abigail, she was his most valued confidant. He would go to her and ask her opinion on so many things. And she greatly influenced his decision-making as president and before becoming president. And she was my Mrs. Adams. I went to her all the time and asked her opinion on really important decisions. I don't think I ever did a speech without running it by her first. And she got a lot of the dry run of my talks and all my jokes and stories. I felt bad for her because she'd come to these events and there'd be, 1,000 people, and I'd get up and I could almost see her lip sync my stories because she just knew me so well and knew all my stuff, but she never minded. She always loved going there. She was the first person to stand, in standing ovation. She would get everybody else to stand. So she was an amazing woman.
I hear she had a musical talent.
She did, yeah. As a matter of fact, she had a scholarship to school with the oboe. And she was really, really good with the oboe and got a pretty close to a full ride scholarship because she was an oboe player. But she also played the piano and mostly piano and the oboe.
Can we just say the oboe is very hard to play? And you have to make your own reeds. And you have to keep the orchestra in tune because that's what everybody tunes to. So the fact that she was a really good oboist speaks volumes, as well as pianist.
I was just thinking that it was funny that if you get your degree in oboing, you end up working at BNI.
That's kind of the ultimate musician joke reality.
Ironically, she played instruments and she got a scholarship for that, but her degree was actually in spiritual formation.
What is that?
Religious degree. We're not talking religion, but she had a degree and a master's degree in religious formation. So she had both a bachelor's and a master's in religion.
Okay, I have a question about that because, we've chatted with Ivan on several occasions and he comes to our Zoom meetings. So we're privy to some information that, the general population hasn't heard yet. But you expressed to us before that you're not particularly religious. How did that go with somebody who had a
So we're going into religion after all, are we?
We don't have to go into specifics, but the two of you kind of had different backstories, it sounds like, in that regard.
We did, and what's interesting is we kind of came together over the years. We were married 31 years, and we kind of came together over the years. I recommended a book many times on the Facebook group, A Journey of Souls, and very spiritual book, not religious. And I think the two of us kind of came together with that kind of mentality. And I'd highly recommend that book to people, whether you have a religious background or not.
I love Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls, and it's true. I second that it is one to be read. So you and Elisabeth, you have had children, correct?
Yeah. Well, she and I had two children, and she adopted my eldest daughter, and so we have three kids, and she was just an amazing mom and an amazing stepmom at first, and then eventually a mother to my eldest.
So what happened?
Well, Elisabeth had breast cancer, and she really addressed it the same way that I addressed my cancer diagnosis, holistically. And she went into remission from the cancer. Things were going great. We were really living the life that we had built together, 30 years together. And we talked about eventually retiring, or at least me slowing down and spending more and more time together. And we were starting to do that. And about a year and a half, 2 years ago, she just started not feeling right. And she had an MRI with contrast. And from that got gadolinium poisoning, which is rare. Not too many people have a reaction to gadolinium like she did. But she, couldn't process the gadolinium out of her body. And so was having a lot of pain. And it was getting worse and worse and worse, to the point where the last 2 months of her life, she was in so much pain, and she wouldn't take painkillers because she didn't want to hurt her liver. She wanted to process the gadolinium out. And so she was in so much pain. I was, for probably 6 weeks, maybe 2 months, I was up every 2 hours with her, putting ice packs on her to help with the pain, because the most she would take is Tylenol. She wouldn't take anything else. And it was getting worse and worse. I finally brought in someone to help care for her during the day while I was working. And she was seeing a medical doctor as well as the holistic doctors. And this whole process lasted 8 months, 2 months really bad. And she went to a medical doctor, and the medical doctor did some tests and came back and said, in addition to the gadolinium poisoning, this might be a return of the cancer that you had. And from that day, she had 8 days to live. So it was sort of the worst of both worlds. It was a protracted illness, and then it was a quick death. I was just in shock. that the cancer came back and that she literally just had 8 days after she got that diagnosis. She and I both thought she would recover from the gadolinium poisoning. And what happened really was the gadolinium kind of masked the return of the cancer. And even the medical doctor didn't see it, but she didn't want to do too many invasive kind of tests. She was very holistic minded. And unfortunately, the cancer came back during this gadolinium poisoning that she had.
I've never even heard of gadolinium poisoning, so that's pretty crazy. Is it radioactive?
No, it's a heavy metal. If you do a search on
Bruce Wayne.
No, the martial arts
Rex
guy.
Kwon-Do?
No, although karate, he played Texas Ranger.
Oh, Chuck Norris.
Chuck Norris, yes, thank you. Chuck Norris's wife had a serious gadolinium poisoning case, and if you do a search on the internet for his wife, you'll find a lot of information about that. And Elisabeth just immersed herself in that information.
When you have gadolinium poisoning, is it just something that you just have to kind of wait out? There's not really a treatment for it or anything to do about it?
There's really no treatment for it. You can do things to help process it out, but some bodies just have a hard time processing out heavy metals. And unfortunately, she was one of them. I've had MRIs with contrast several times, and I have no problem processing the heavy metal, but she did.
The heavy metal.
Not that kind of heavy metal, the bad kind.
You're suddenly a widower, and your world has just fallen apart, and you didn't expect to be in that position, right? So what do you do?
Look, she was 8 years younger than me. Mm. And you ladies have a tendency to live longer than us guys. All the planning I did, everything I did in my planning for the future was that she would survive longer than me, probably 10 to 20 years longer than me. And so I was completely blindsided by her passing.
Didn't she have some wishes for you in case she died?
She did. The last day she was conscious, she basically went into a coma for almost 2 days. But right before she went to sleep that night, she, out of the blue, told me, she started talking to me about getting remarried. And I was like, whoa, hang on. We'll get through this. You're going to be okay. And she told me who to marry. I mean, she gave me names and she told me who not to marry. She gave me names and she's like naming this one particular woman. And I'm like, she said, you can't marry her. And I said, why would I marry her? And she said, well, she has been after you for years. And I'm like, she's not after me. Yes, she is. I watch her and she's definitely after you. And I'm like, okay, I promise you I will not marry that woman. And so she told me who to marry, who not to marry.
Okay, I'm curious though. Did the person you're not supposed to marry, did she come on the prowl after Elisabeth died? Was Elisabeth right?
So there are creepers who are women as well as men.
So yes,
the oboe player's always right.
Yeah, little bit. I kind of shut it down.
You've told us how you kind of came upon our podcast and what you thought of us at first, and I want you to share that with the people listening now.
Yeah, I'm a member of an organization called the Transformational Leadership Council, which was started by Jack Canfield, and who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. And one of the members, Martin Root, good friend, one of your listeners recommended the podcast to him because he knew that Martin knew me. And so Martin suggested your podcast. And I went and listened to it. And I listened to it. I was like, what the hell? Why did you recommend this podcast? The two of you are just going, yeah. All this energy going at each other and not negatively, but just, I didn't get it. And I reached out to Martin and I was like, Martin, why did you recommend this podcast? I don't understand. And his friend said, look, listen to a second one. Just get past the first one. Listen to a second one. And, I was listening to a podcast expecting, something a little more scientific or
actionable.
Helpful.
But you know what? Let's talk about actionable, because I have gotten a lot of actionable things out of your podcast, but maybe not the first one I listened to. But I listened to the second one and it drew me in. It absolutely drew me in. And, you talked about things that resonated with me. And so I listened to that third one and then that fourth one. And by the fourth one, I was totally in. And I've learned a lot from listening to your podcast. Things that I realized I did wrong when in BNI, been doing this 30 years. I've had a number of people who've passed away. And I came to the conclusion that I've said the wrong thing to people many times, like, you'll get through this, just be patient. I tried to make it right. I tried to solve their grief, which obviously is not the right thing to do. Oh, so one of the things that you guys talked about is to meet people where they are in the grief process. And that happened to be one of the first podcasts I listened to, probably one of the fourth or fifth podcast.
It was called Meet Me Where I Ham. Did you remember the title?
That's the podcast name, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And that actually was helpful to me in recognizing what I did wrong in talking to people who were going through grief, and in understanding, when people are talking to me and talking about getting through it, recognizing that they're muggles, as you guys like to say, and they don't know any better.
Ivan, so you have this big company and you're a fancy pants and all of these things.
Fancy pants.
Yes.
Okay. In the United Kingdom, fancy pants means something completely different.
I rescind my declaration.
We do love the fancy pants community.
We'll call you a fancy shirt. You're a fancy shirt.
Okay, thanks.
And then you lose your wife.
Yeah.
And how do you keep doing all of the things that you're supposed to be doing? You have all these people who, you're interacting with, and you're supposed to give speeches and all of these things, and your world just collapsed.
Yeah, it really did. It was such a shock to me. I remember, guys, for many months, I would walk up to her urn and just yell, bad word, bad word, bad word. What am I going to do now?
Quack, quack, quack.
Thank you for saying bad word for our mothers.
Yes. It's a great way of swearing, by the way. Just say bad word, and everybody knows exactly what you're thinking. But it was challenging. I found that for me, and look, when it comes to business, I have answers. When it comes to grief, I have experiences, and my experiences may or may not resonate with others listening to this podcast. For me, my work was a way to get away from my grief momentarily for a period of time. I found it most difficult after hours. I would go in, focus, do what I have to do. And then at the end of the day, when I didn't have anything else to do, anybody else to talk to, that's when the grief probably hit me more than any other time. And another thing from your, talk about actionable, another thing from your podcast that really resonated with me was that grief is patient. I mean, I experienced that where I'm doing just fine. Everything's okay one day. And then something happens that just triggers me. And it's like, where did that come from? Why did that trigger me the way it did? And your podcast helped me frame in my mind why I was thinking the things I was thinking, why I was experiencing the things that I was experiencing. And I'm really glad that Martin introduced me.
Thanks, Martin. So, Ivan, as you know, there are less widowers than widows in the world, and we've had a handful of widowers on our podcast, but it's always interesting to get the unique perspective from the male point of view because, as we've talked about before, males are perhaps less prone to talk about emotional things of that nature. What has it been like for you coming from the actionable business world, like, get the stuff done, and now you're dealing with this emotion? What has this journey looked like for you so far? What has surprised you?
Well, in one of your podcasts, you talk about the fact that oftentimes men, the only person that they really talk to is their wife, is their spouse. And wow, that was so true for me. I'm not much of a sports guy or a car guy, but when you're talking to men and you start getting to emotional stuff, it's like, hey, how about those Lakers? Aren't they doing well? And they don't know how. Most men do not know how to deal with deep emotions coming from another man. And I certainly would say I'm probably one of those. And it was interesting to listen to the two of you talk through things that I couldn't talk with people about. But I could hear you guys talk about these things. And I think that's one of the things that kind of drew me in is that, listening to you talk about things that I was thinking and feeling, but not really having anyone that I felt comfortable with, even another woman. It just felt odd to have a conversation with, and I have several close female friends, just didn't feel right talking about such personal things with even a female friend. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. Do you feel like there's historically, or I think we're changing this a little bit, but that there's been this feeling that you don't air your dirty laundry. You keep the things that are hard or sensitive or painful, you kind of keep those close and you don't share those with other people. And so it's almost like we're conditioned that those things that make us look weak or that make us, look like we're maybe not coping well, we just keep that to ourselves and we don't share that with others.
I don't know if it's part of our DNA or if it's cultural, but it's real. I just have found that most men don't really talk to each other. I would watch Elisabeth have conversations, and she'd come back, to me. Maybe she'd go out to lunch with a couple of girlfriends and come back and talk about these things that that they discussed. And I'd be thinking, oh my God, I'd never talk about that with one of my guy friends. I would never talk about that. I can't believe that you would have this kind of conversation. So I don't know what it is, but women are way better. Look, not all women and not all men are like I'm describing, but I think it's safe to say that as a rule, women are way better at talking through their feelings than we are. And I think that's one of the reasons why I loved your podcast so much, or love your podcast so much, is it's a way of me processing the things that I don't talk about with other men.
Now, you can tell me you don't want to answer this if you want to, but did you try therapy at all?
I did. And I have a family therapist that has worked with my kids over the years. But I really didn't talk a lot about my feelings and Elisabeth's passing. My discussions with her were, how am I now going to be a single parent to my adult children? Luckily my children are adults and I'm not in a position where I have to raise my kids like you do, Anita. Oh my God. I can't imagine.
Do you want to adopt one or more?
I'll tell you what, I'll babysit for a day, but that's probably about it.
Don't offer that, Ivan. If you're not serious, don't you tease me like that.
I don't think you know what you're signing up for.
You know what? See, all I have are grand dogs. So, I have no grandchildren, which is, by the way, a topic that you don't bring up with your kids. They don't like that very much.
All those books organized behind you in the bookshelf, just pull those all out. Throw them on the floor, light one or two on fire. That's what it would be like.
Oh, my house is definitely not childproof. So.
That's what I thought, Ivan. That's what I thought.
Yeah. So I that's the discussion I had with her was, how do I do this? Elisabeth was great with our kids. She was such a great listener. And, and that's really kind of the conclusion that I came to is more than I used to, just shut up and listen and ask questions, ask how they're doing. And when they have an issue, just listen. And she was really good at that. And I'm a solver. Tell me the problem, I'll fix it. And that's not always the best approach.
So I have a question about your kids. When I call my parents' house, it's like, is mom there? If my dad answers the phone, is mom there? Did your kids, I feel like that was probably their go-to when Elisabeth was here. Did they have to transition into wanting to talk to you? Does that make sense? Was it a natural, like, I'm going to go talk to dad?
I talked to them, but not as often as Elisabeth did. You're right. They would call her probably more than me. What was really interesting was they started calling me a lot more. And one of the things I discovered was right after Elisabeth died, they would call very regularly. And then I noticed after a couple of weeks that they were alternating.
They are so sneaky.
And I didn't know this until a couple of months later, but they had actually spoken to each other and divvied up days of the week where one would call me on one day, and then a couple of days later, another would call me, and then a couple of days later, the third one would call me, and they would alternate just to make sure that I was okay. And, the favorite question that my children had, and almost every woman I knew and know had, was, are you eating? And so they would always ask, are you eating, Dad? Is everything okay? How are you doing? So yeah, they were cute. They divvied up the days of the week to call me.
They totally had a Google Doc going on.
Yeah.
They probably did.
So you mentioned that Elisabeth was supportive of you potentially finding somebody after her passing. What's that looking like for you now?
Well, it's looking reasonably well. And I think it's really important to understand that I felt I needed to navigate my way through my grief with a purpose in mind. And, I wanted to live a life of contentment, of peace, of harmony, maybe even happiness. And so it was really a matter of how I looked at the world. I think two people sitting in a room at the same table, having the same meal at the same time, can actually be worlds apart because they look at the world so differently. I love astronomy. And I've learned that by choosing different lenses or filters for my telescope, I can literally observe different things in the night sky. Like if I look at the moon through my telescope, it's so bright. It's like walking into a pitch black room and turning on bright lights. It hurts your eyes. Yet if you put a filter on it, things just jump out. The craters of the moon jump out. And on a different lens, you can see the red spot on Jupiter or Saturn's rings. And I believe that life is kind of similar in the sense that the lens we choose to see the world through can really influence the things that we experience. What you put in your brain shows up in your behavior. And so I wanted to be open-minded, to finally get to your question. I wanted to be open-minded about dating again. But I was shocked at how quickly I met somebody. It was about 6-7 months after Elisabeth passed away. And I was actually, this referral thing actually works out pretty well. A friend who is partners with Jack Canfield, her name's Patty. Patty said, "Hey, Ivan, there's a woman that I would like, I think you'd like to meet." And she lived in California. And I'm like, okay. And she said, can I introduce her to you on Zoom? And I said, okay. And so I met Jody on a Zoom call, just her and I and Patty. And Patty was really good. She, was there long enough to make the introduction, and then, I got to go away for a couple of minutes, and stepped away. And Jody and I talked, and we texted each other for, better part of a month, and kind of got to know each other mostly through texts of all things. And we started talking about wine. I love wine. And I said, I haven't been to Napa in a long time. And she said, I've never been, I haven't really seen many wineries in Napa. And so I invited her to Napa Valley, and we met for the first time about a month or so after we met by Zoom. And I've been seeing her ever since. She's a huge surprise in my life. Not something I expected.
The dating world has changed a lot.
Yeah. Well, and I probably would never do, never say never, but it's unlikely that I would ever do an app or an online dating service. And I'll tell you why. I don't understand this, but I get people who pretend to be me on a lot of these dating apps. And we're constantly trying to shut down people who show up on Facebook or show up on dating apps, and they're imposters. And so I just would probably never do a dating app, because I've had too many imposters on the dating apps. So good old referral. That's the way to go.
That's the best way. So you and Elisabeth were together for quite a while and had your own life and habits. How has that been, navigating a new person also while still caring for Elisabeth?
The woman that I'm seeing, I went out a couple of times before I went out with her, and there just was no connection. But the woman I'm seeing now is, she's amazing. The first time she came here to my house, she called me up the day before, I think it was, and said, look, you were married for 31 years. You probably have photographs of Elisabeth all around the house. Please don't take any down. That's a relationship that was important to you, and I don't want you to be uncomfortable with your home and photos. Now, I didn't tell her this. I don't know if she's going to listen to this or not. I had no intention of taking any photographs down, but the fact that she brought it up really told me a lot about her. And this was the second time. By the way, as of this interview, we've been on 9 dates for 63 days.
What?
Whoa. You have the longest dates of anybody I've ever met.
Every single date with her has been 4 days or longer.
She's really trusting, because if you were a psycho murderer, she would be dead already.
She would be hidden in that wine cellar.
I know. Well, so, on our first date in Napa Valley, we have a mutual friend, and the mutual friend said to her, and Jody's basically been single for 10 years and really hasn't dated a lot because she was raising her kids. And Patty, our mutual friend, basically said, look, I know him well. You can trust him. He's a good guy. And so she was pretty comfortable. And, I took her to Napa, and I said, look, separate rooms. It's all good. It's not going to be anything weird. And we had a wonderful trip. And so I actually, being the business guy, I actually have I'm almost embarrassed to admit this. I actually have an Excel spreadsheet of how many dates we've had and how many days each one has been. And we joke around about, date number 9.1, 9.2, 9.3. The 9 series was 10.
9 series. It's like an iPhone.
Yeah, that's right. 9.10. So we had 10 days on our 9th date. I know, really strange, isn't it?
It's very logical, though.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I understand.
So, Ivan, I want to share with our listeners just a little bit about how you have helped us. And, you know, we've talked about on the podcast about how things have just fallen into place when they've needed to fall into place. And we feel like we've been pushed by something other than just two weird widows, like in their basement recording on microphones. But, you know, we were trying to figure out how to make the podcast go forward and how to, you know, how to keep it going on all of these things. And, you know, this weird guy named Ivan had messaged us, and we didn't know who you were or what you were or anything about you. And then you plop into our laps. I mean, Ivan, the business guy who knows all of the things, plops into our laps and is like, let me help you. And we're like, okay, you know. And it's kind of shown us that what we're doing needs to keep going, because those kind of things don't fall into your lap for no reason, is kind of how we feel.
Probably not. And, you know, I plopped into your lap, as you say, because of the things you guys are doing. I mean, I really believe we all have people that are in our story, people that have made a difference in our life. I mean, I could tell you stories about people that did something small or something huge that just changed the trajectory of my life in a positive way. And it's great to have people in our story. But the thing that's more important is it's not who's in our story, but whose story are we in? Whose life have we made a difference in? And you ladies are making a huge difference in a lot of people's lives. And I just think that's really important. And that's why I wanted to support what you're doing, because you certainly made a difference in my life at a time in my life where I didn't think I would need someone to make a difference in my life. You know, my life was pretty well set.
It's so interesting, and we say this often to each other, that it's so interesting how the widowed community comes together, and how in some ways you feel a connection like a family, even though we're not, you know, of course related, but it seems that we all are here to help each other out. And it's been really encouraging, I know, for us as we interview people and we learn of their stories, and as we're in the Facebook group and seeing all the support and help that's given there, how caring these people are to other total strangers. I mean, even just this last week, one of our widows was struggling with an issue and needed some help with it, and somebody offered a suggestion that ended up being the thing that was really going to help. And these are not like trite things. It's like we talk about things and they're like mental health or doctors or things like that. And for total strangers just to never have met each other, but then they're in this group and then they each become a part of their own story, each other's stories. It feels just like, I don't know, the universe is pleased or striving or whatever it is. But yeah, it's something that's kind of indescribable, I think.
It really is. You know, what I've seen is on the Facebook group, just people come together and be there for each other and be there in a really non-judgmental way. And that's one of the things that really amazed me about the Facebook group in particular, was how people would offer advice and suggestions gently and non-judgmentally. And that's, again, a testament to you ladies, because you don't, I'm guessing, tolerate posts that are really judgmental. I mean, I don't see them. I'm guessing at some point you have taken things down that maybe were out of line, but I haven't seen it on your group. And that's a testament to your leadership.
I don't know. There may have been one or two, but it's been eye-opening to us that we have not had to really take things down. And I know that there are hot topics in there, like the word dead versus passed away, or like certain words that people who are closer to the date of death are more sensitive about than maybe those a few years out. And so we have all sorts of people in their various time frames of healing. And I know it's easy to forget. If you're 4 years out, it's easy to forget how it was when it was 2 months out, and the certain sensitive words. And it's just been mind-blowing to watch people in whatever part of their journey they're in to handle everybody with care and in the right way and offer advice or just offer empathy or a listening ear. So we have to really also give credit to everybody for being so awesome and rad. It's mind-blowing because I can't think of many groups that I'm in where it just naturally is like that.
I would agree. And I think, you've attracted this group of people. Things like this they really happen from the top. And you've attracted amazing people who are making a huge difference for a lot of us. And, it's one of the reasons why I reached out to you ladies. I don't know how long ago, 6-8 months ago.
What's coming up for you in your life? I mean, there's kind of a few small things that you've got planned for the future, right?
Like just little tiny
little
ones.
excursions, trips, places you might visit.
Gee, what are you talking about?
I mean, we're talking about the ones a little bit longer than 52 steps from your main house to your office. Yeah. What do you got going on?
You really want me to go there?
You have to. It's so awesome.
You can't not.
You've heard our Patreon shout outs. Ivan the Astronaut Misner.
And where did you ladies come up with Ivan the Misner? That cracked me up.
If you think we think through anything, you're so confused, Ivan.
In the moment at all times.
It was in the moment. Yeah. So I signed up to be a Virgin Galactic astronaut 14 years ago. I did a long time ago. I was actually I just came back from Necker Island. You probably saw that I was there. That's Branson's Island. And the first time I was there, on one of the last days, he got us together in the great room and he said, I got something really cool you guys want to see. And he pops in this DVD. And it's this concept of taking a spaceship, a jet up and dropping a spaceship from it and launching into space and doing it as commercial flights. And we watched this and we're all in awe. And he looked at me and he said, you should do this. And I said, yes, I'm in. I'll do it. And of course, Elisabeth was with me and she's like, what? You're going to do what? But I was in. And so I signed up back in 2007 or 8 to be a Virgin Galactic astronaut.
Did you sign Elisabeth up too?
I did. I know. So now I've got to deal with that. It's a whole other.
Did they give you refunds for deceased?
No,
persons?
but
can Anita go with you?
No, I don't want to go with him.
Can I go with you? I'll do it.
So I've got that, and then I'm headed to Antarctica.
For why? Why does somebody do that?
Are you exploring new territories? Are you making maps?
Yes. Well, I wanted to put a B&I chapter there.
Okay, perfect. They need one.
Ivan, I want to ask you a question. For the astronaut thing, do you have to do any training, or do you just have to sit in a place and they do everything and you just sit there?
Well, there's a little bit of training, but you're basically just a passenger, so there's not a lot. But yeah, and, you got to have a physical. But a lot of that will wait until they really start flying commercially. But yeah, there'll be a little bit of training, and there'll be some, the physical tests that you have to pass to get through.
How long will you actually be in space?
So the flight is about 2 hours, but you're only in space for 10 minutes. But you get astronaut wings when you come back. You're an astronaut.
Did they let you unclip your seatbelt and float around for 10 minutes?
Yes.
Stop it. Why do you not want to go? I will go.
I don't think you're invited, number one.
I know I'm not invited. I just support you, but I'm jealous.
I support your astronaut dreams.
Wow.
Are you going to eat in space? No eating.
No, yeah, you're only 2 hours, so.
Okay. Yeah, but what about the drink? You have to have the mid-flight drinks.
I'll suggest that to them and see what they say.
I have a question for you for widowers. So you're an actionable kind of a guy.
I am.
And guys like actionable things. Girls do too, but a lot of times, we have the spectrum. What are some actionable tips that you feel would help widowers or widows that like actionable things?
Look, so here we get into I can talk about my experiences, but everybody has, they're experiencing grief differently. I see some of the people on the Facebook group that take a month off because they just can't work. I didn't. I took maybe a week off, and I wanted to get back to work because, first of all, I love what I do. I think, you're either working in your flame or working in your wax. And when you're in your flame, you're on fire, you're excited, you love what you do. When you're in your wax, it just takes all your energy away. But what I do, I'm working on my flame. I love what I do. And so for me, it was about getting back to work and doing the things I love. And it was a distraction from my grief. But I also wanted to be alone. I didn't want people around. And some people want, people around them. I certainly needed to be around my kids. But other than my children, I didn't want to see people. I had a really good friend who called me up and he said, I'm flying out there tomorrow. And I'm like, no, please don't. And he's like, no, you need someone with you. And I'm like, no, please don't. He's like, no, I'm getting a ticket. I'm flying. I'm like, you don't know the gate code. You're not going to get through the gate. And I have a pretty good friend who's a member of TLC, John Gray. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus.
Oh, I thought you were like TLC, like the band.
No, Transformational Leadership Council. He's a member of the Transformational Leadership Council. He wrote the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. So I reached out to John and I said, look, I've got all these people. They want to come to my house, and I just want to be alone. I mean, is that weird? And God bless him. He was like, no, it's not weird. That's it was sort of the kind of stuff that you guys talk about in your podcasts before I was listening to your podcast, which was, people just need to meet you where you are. I mean, he didn't say that, but that's pretty much the message, which was, it's okay if you want to be alone. And he knew what he was talking about because his wife had died like a year earlier. And so he had been through something very similar, and he wanted to be alone. So, I mean, I think you need to do the things that you feel you have to do. Don't judge yourself by what other people are doing. Judge yourself by what you feel you need.
I think I'm remembering this correctly, but correct me if I'm wrong. I think I remember a time in the Widow Wives Club where somebody was having an issue and you offered some advice that I thought was like brilliant. And it was something like with regard to going through what we all go through as grievers, and what we're going to deal with people who do not understand and who might say things, or we might interpret things a certain way. And it can be hurtful, and we are learning how to deal with it with this kind of new brain that we are dealing with. And you said something that struck me as so profound, and you offered the advice to the person to say something like, I am not that person.
You look at somebody like oftentimes it's the in-laws, a mother-in-law or father-in-law will say something, and you just have to say to yourself, I have a mother-in-law. I'm not my mother-in-law. I have a child. I'm not my child. And differentiate yourself from that person. They're having their own experience in life. It doesn't have to be your experience.
So basically, two lenses.
Yeah, and people will say things that might trigger you. Sometimes you have to ask yourself. I didn't talk about this on the post, but sometimes you have to ask yourself, am I giving it the meaning that person had when they said this to me? Sometimes we give meaning to things said to us that aren't real. They're our interpretation of what someone says. And, I've certainly had people say things to me that didn't land well, but I had to recognize that they were feeling awkward about the situation, and to give them grace in the same way that I hope that they gave me grace in dealing with the grief that I had. And most of the people were really good. I had one person that I went ballistic on.
Wait, what happened? Tell us. We're here for it.
Yeah. Okay. One person, it was a member who was about 3 months after Elisabeth died, and they sent a private message. They were having a problem in their group, and they literally said, I'm not exaggerating, it's time to let go of your grief and handle this issue.
Oh, fail.
Yeah. That's the only person that I lost it with. Other people would say things and they would just bounce off me mostly. But that one, I said, I wrote back and I said, I cannot believe you actually said that. You are hereby banned from all my social media.
Yes.
I completely banned him from all my social media.
King Ivan decreed him banned from his kingdom.
King Astronaut Ivan the Misner, TM, circle R.
Circle R. Yes, my trademark. You guys have pointed that out a couple times. The reason that I trademarked my name was to stop imposters.
That's the only reason we know that story, actually.
Yeah.
Because we talked about imposters one time.
It works really well when you have a trademark. You can't trademark a name by itself, so that's why I was able to get a trademark on Dr. Ivan Misner, and I do that to stop people from saying things I didn't say or pretending to be me or that kind of crazy stuff.
Nobody ever pretends to be me.
I know. I was just going to say we should trademark the name Guru Melchor.
Okay.
And Fancy Person Anita Coyle.
Oh yeah, those are trademarkable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's put in the application tomorrow.
We'll get 0 imposters. Ivan, you mentioned something earlier about the wax and the flame, and I recognize that because I have this book right here in front of me called Who's in Your Room that you so graciously sent to me when I asked, because you had a cool thing in there about harmony and balance that resounded with me. And Ivan did not ask us to promote any of his materials, just FYI to those listening, but we did read this book, and it's full of such helpful advice, and it's a quick read. So if you are looking for something to help kind of get your thoughts in order or to gain new perspective on maybe how to handle life or grief or just being a human on the planet, check out his resources. Sorry, did you like that plug? We just made that up too.
I did, thank you. Shameless plug. I didn't suggest
He
it.
did not. No, yeah. You've just helped us so much, and we love helping people just however we can too. And it's really such helpful stuff.
I appreciate it, and I enjoyed doing that book. It doesn't really talk about grief. However, we're working on a second edition, and I probably will put in material in there about grief as a result. What it does talk about that I think would resonate with the people in your community is the idea of creating a life of harmony. The balance is not possible. That we all shoot for balance, but our lives are just too crazy. It's more of a juggling act than a balancing act. But you can have a life of harmony. And to me, and I talk about it in the book, one of the important things of creating a life of harmony is to be fully present to whatever it is that you're experiencing. Be here now, those simple words, wherever you are, be fully present to that. And that's one of the first steps in harmony. And one of the things that Elisabeth taught me is in there about margins, that you have to have margins in life. You have to create margins in your life where you can enjoy something, have a great experience, have some fun. And if we don't have margins in our life, the stress goes up exponentially.
Oh, Ivan, thank you. Thank you for all of your support, all of your kind words. Thank you for being a valued member of the Widow Wives Club. Thank you for talking to us tonight. We made Ivan jump through all sorts of hoops to meet with us tonight. So we're really thankful for everything that you have done for us and for our community. And hopefully people listening will have found something to grab onto.
Thanks. I hope so. I got one other thought before we wrap. For me, I found that grief began to fade when the memories brought peace along with the pain. When I could think of Elisabeth and our experiences together and look at photographs and have a warm feeling about what I remembered was the beginning of me starting to move my way through grief. You never completely, it doesn't leave completely, but you can find a path through it.
Boom. The astronaut has spoken. Well, if we have helped anybody in the world, it's due to people like you that are encouraging to us, and you are helping us to resonate with others. So you are part of that resonation. Resonation? Is that the word? Resonance. You are part of that resonance.
All right, so you're going to give me the important question?
Yeah, Ivan, the time has come to ask the important question. Are you ready?
I'm fully prepared for it.
Okay.
Actionable options only. What is your favorite cheese?
I love this question. And, the first time I heard you ladies do this one, I'm like, what the heck? Who cares about cheese? But now I listen to all the podcasts to find out what cheese people like. And other things, but I always stick to the end to hear this. So mine, I think you'll like drunken goat cheese.
We saw that today at the store. I've never seen it in my life.
Mm-hmm. It's true. We even took a video of it.
It's great cheese, and it's prepared. They actually they put the cheese in a wine paste that makes the shell of the cheese red. Usually the shell is edible, and so it's got a mild wine flavor on the on the edge of the cheese. All I eat is goat cheese, so I love drunken goat.
Mel told me we couldn't buy it, so now she feels bad.
Mel,
we got other things. We got the illegal cheese. We found the illegal cheese that Jenny Lisk likes today in southern Utah.
So it's legal there. There's a lot of things legal there, maybe, that aren't legal elsewhere.
If any of you would like to help us get drunken goat cheese, we have a Patreon. I'm kidding.
Thank you, Ivan. Thank you for the cheese suggestion on top of the other things that you've told us. Remember to check out the Widow Wives Club. Come be part of the community that we've talked a lot about in this interview today. It's a private Facebook group for widows, widowers, or people who have lost their partner. Make sure you answer all the questions, because we're really not going to let you in if you don't answer all the questions, and we feel badly about it.
If you'd like to join our Patreon, it's patreon.com/WWDN. We have 4 tiers starting at just $5 per month, which is only one taco.
And if you want to buy us a taco, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/widowwedonoww. And until we talk to you again, I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
I'm Ivan.
And we're just 2 young widows and an Antarctic explorer / astronaut / wine connoisseur / author / entrepreneur.
Circle R.
We're all just trying to figure out Widow we do now.
This is my favorite thing to discuss with you.
Tell me, what is it?
One of my favorite things. I do enjoy tacos and cheese and dogs. This is about how you cannot pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a phone plan, especially when you're a widow, your person is dead, you might have kids, you might need another option, and you just want your phone to work, you want unlimited texting and service, and you want it to be like $25 a month.
It blows my mind that they have plans that start at $15 a month. That is so cheap. And the cool thing is it uses other 5G networks, and so you don't have to pay extra for that, and you still get great service.
Yep, Anita and I have traveled all over, and I have used my phone. So I highly recommend it, and my mom's even on it. When my dad died, we put his phone down to the cheapest plan, which is $15 a month. And I think my mom's on the $20 a month plan, and it's so worth it. It's so much cheaper than what we were all paying before. So I highly recommend it if you're on a budget or not. Who cares? Ryan Reynolds is in charge of the company, and they send you free stickers with Ryan Reynolds temporary tattoos. It's kind of the best. So if somebody wants to sign up, what can they do, Anita?
Go to trymintmobile.com/WWDN. Seriously, you guys. Such a great idea. Save yourself some money.
And if you're worried about losing data or having any changes with your phone, not going to happen. They walk you through it. Everything's fine. It's the easiest process of all time. Again, that's
trymintmobile.com/WWDN.